Many years ago, I remember hearing the story of a charismatic prayer meeting which went all night. Apparently, the leader was convinced that God wants to do something strong and powerful here, and we have to be worthy of it. So he insisted that everyone stay until it happened. By dawn, nothing had overtly occurred, so the leader declared, God has worked hundreds of miracles here tonight on the inside. He may have been right, but it sounded like mystical spin doctoring to me. What worries me about this story is that it can portray God as remote and a severe figure whom we need to convince that we're serious about him before he will be serious about our needs. Today's gospel is often used in support of this idea. The persistent widow gets her way because she nags the judge into submission. While Jesus praises her endurance, he tells the disciples that God is not like the judge, but rather that God will quickly attend to our needs rather than see us all cry out all night. There is a long and venerable tradition in the church that prayer can influence God's will. Our belief in the power of intercession is predicated on it. This tradition holds that God regularly and actively intervenes to good effect when we seek his will. In this school, God is waiting to be asked or have us ask others to petition him. The problem with this school is how much an all-knowing, unchanging God changes his mind in regard to our petitions. Furthermore, God's interventions in the world are fine if all the decisions are running our way, but what happens when they run against us? This approach can play down free will. We can minimize our role with God to discern our options, then choose carefully. If most of our petitions are focused on what God can do, it shifts all the responsibility and all the blame onto God. An equally long and venerable tradition in the church, however, is that prayer changes us. This tradition has had less airplay. Fasting, abstinence, and pilgrimages, for example, do not change God, but they're meant to change the people who undertake them. These things can enable us to be more responsive or receptive to whatever happens in life. I think this tradition needs to be reclaimed. The idea of prayer changing us changes our prayer. It gives it greater dynamism and urgency. While we may not know the mind or will of God, we often know our own thoughts and desires. We can usually pinpoint what needs recrafting or reshaping in us so that we may live out the goodness and love of God more clearly. Confronting and converting these obstacles with God can see our prayer at its boldest and our bravest. At these times, we can enjoy God's healing and forgiveness. And because conversion is a lifelong process, Jesus encourages us not to lose heart, but to pray always and to hold on to faith even when the going gets tough. The Jesuit John Powell once said, God knows what we need and what we want before we open our mouths. In prayer, then, he does not need a performance from us. He longs for an act of love. May the Eucharist help us to move away from demanding that God will change his mind or will to allowing us to keep his love converting and changing us always, here and